Ellie, who would have thought bread could stir so many emotions? For me, it is so much more than food. It's a symbol of comfort and warmth. Everything from the process of making it with the kneading and the baking and that smell of a fresh loaf, there is nothing quite like it.
You're so right, Luke. Whenever I speak to clients, bread is one of the first things they say, please don't make me give it up.
But it can be confusing. There's so many different types out there.
So many to choose from. We're just looking at the top 4 most popular breads today. Brands are trying to use buzzwords and jargon to make their products seem like the healthiest choice.
Let's kick things off with white bread, Ellie. This is my childhood in a loaf, and it was in my lunchbox every day without fail. But is it actually any good for us?
Well, it's a highly refined bread, which means in that process we lose a lot of the nutritional value in the ingredients. And in that process, it also becomes a high GI or high glycemic index product, which means we have high blood sugar response when we eat the bread, and then we have big blood sugar drops after eating the bread. And over time, that not only impacts your quality of life, but your weight as well.
One of the biggest concerns I have about white bread is that it's really low in fibre, which means it's not really great for our gut health. But I think it stood the test of time because it's readily available, it's very cost effective, and it has an incredibly long shelf life.
And it's palatable. People enjoy the soft, white, fluffy texture of white bread.
Next up, let's take a closer look at wholemeal. Now, it looks similar to white bread. They're both made from wheat flour, but the wholemeal is from the whole wheat, which has been ground down into a fine flour, but it gives the loaf a much browner consistency and more of a dense, earthy taste.
Yeah, so it's still quite a highly processed bread, but it is slightly higher in fibre than white bread. And that's a good thing because fibre is going to support regular bowel motions, and it's even good for cardiovascular health and hormone health. But a pro is that it is higher in nutrients and minerals, so B vitamins and minerals like iron and magnesium. So in comparison to white bread, it's still a better choice.
Let's take a look at whole grain. It's similar to wholemeal in that it's made on the whole wheat grain, but it also contains other non-wheat grains, things like oats, barley, quinoa, and even seeds.
And Luke, the more seeds and grains, the better. They contain healthy fats, they contain a host of minerals. They're also rich in prebiotics, which are a food for the health-promoting bacteria in our gut microbiome, which we know influences our broader health.
I'm a big fan of the texture, but it is important to note that whole grain and multigrain are very different. Whole grain is made on a wholemeal base, whereas multigrain is made on a white base with the seeds and grains run through it.
It sounds really confusing, but this is where learning to look at the ingredient panel on your packaged bread can be really helpful. And at the top of that ingredient list, you want to see wholemeal flour listed.
This next one is definitely my favourite of the bunch, sourdough. And the big difference here is that instead of using yeast for it to rise, it actually uses a starter culture, but it also gives it a gorgeous, unique taste.
That fermentation process also means that it creates probiotics, and those probiotics in the sourdough make it another great choice for our gut health. In that fermentation process, it also helps to break down FODMAPs, which are a type of carbohydrate. So for people with FODMAP sensitivity or IBS, they may actually tolerate sourdough bread better than the others.
Are there any cons?
Well, it tastes so good that it's very easy to overeat. It's also expensive. It's hard to make, it's time-consuming to make, which makes it an expensive bread.
And not all sourdoughs are created equal. Some are made in just a mere few hours, others over the course of a week. So get to know where you're getting your bread from and get a real good quality sourdough. There's no denying that there's plenty of options out there, Ellie, so what's your take home?
Yeah, so generally speaking, the heavier, more dense the bread is, the better choice it's going to be. We've talked about fibre a lot today, and that is important because the higher fibre the bread is, the more satisfied you'll feel. And the more satisfied you feel means that you'll make better food choices later in the day.
Well, it looks like we'll be leaving that white loaf aside for the time being, except for maybe a kid's party with fairy bread or even a sausage sizzle on the weekend. Thank you so much, Ellie.
That sounds about right, Luke. It's what you do most of the time, not some of the time, that counts.